Before humans invented writing, before the wheel, before we even figured out farming properly, we had already mastered something we apparently cared about a lot more: getting high. The urge to mess with your own brain is older than civilization itself. So who were the first people to brew something strong, light something up, or chew something weird and watch the world go fuzzy? The answer is way, way older than you'd think. The very first high almost certainly wasn't planned. Picture an early human finding some fruit that had fallen, baked in the sun, and quietly fermented into something boozy. One bite, one weird, warm feeling, and history was made. The first alcoholic drink was basically rotten fruit, and nobody filed a complaint. We're not even the first animals to do this. Birds, elephants, and monkeys all get visibly drunk on fermented fruit today. Scientists actually call it the drunken monkey hypothesis, the idea that our love of alcohol is millions of years old, inherited from primate ancestors who enjoyed a boozy snack. We may have been built to enjoy a drink before we were even human. The oldest hard evidence of making alcohol on purpose is staggering. In a cave in what's now Israel, archaeologists found traces of beer roughly 13,000 years old. That is older than farming. Older than the pyramids by 10,000 years. People were brewing before they were planting, which leads to one of the funniest theories in all of archaeology. Some researchers seriously argue that humans may have settled down and started farming grain, not mainly for bread, but for beer. In other words, civilization itself might have been partly powered by the desire to party. Alcohol wasn't alone. Over 5,000 years ago, the ancient Sumerians were growing opium poppies. On their clay tablets, they reportedly wrote the name for it as hul-gil, which translates to the joy plant. They knew exactly what it did, and they were honest about why they liked it. And it goes back further. Opium poppies and their seeds have been found at Stone Age sites across Europe, some thousands of years old. Our ancestors weren't just stumbling onto these plants by accident anymore. They were collecting them on purpose. But when did people first actually smoke something to get high? For that, we go to a remote cemetery high in the Pamir Mountains of western China. There, archaeologists found wooden braziers, little fire bowls, from about 2,500 years ago. Inside those bowls were burnt stones and the chemical traces of cannabis. And not the weak, wild kind. It was unusually high in the compound that gets you high. This wasn't hemp for rope. Someone 25 centuries ago was deliberately burning strong cannabis at a funeral. The best guess is that mourners sat around these braziers, breathing in the smoke as part of a ceremony to honor the dead. Getting high, it seems, was one of humanity's earliest ways of trying to touch the spirit world. The after-party was, quite literally, after. We even have an eyewitness, sort of. Around 440 BC, the Greek historian Herodotus described a people called the Scythians. He wrote that they would set up a small tent, get some red-hot stones, and toss cannabis onto them. According to Herodotus, the Scythians would sit inside, breathe the thick smoke, and then, in his words, howl with joy. So the ancient world's first recorded group smoke session ended exactly how you'd expect, with a tent full of people losing it. Some things never change. Over in South America, people were taking a different route. For at least 8,000 years, Andean cultures have chewed coca leaves for energy and to fight altitude and hunger. Mummies have been found with the leaves still tucked in their cheeks, a habit older than most countries. Then there's the one most people have never heard of, betel nut. For thousands of years across South and Southeast Asia, people have chewed it for a mild buzz, staining their mouths bright red. It's still one of the most widely used stimulants on Earth, and almost nobody in the West knows it exists. The ancient Egyptians had their own favorite, the blue lotus, a water lily that shows up all over their art and tombs. Many believe they soaked it in wine for a gentle, dreamy buzz at parties and ceremonies. Their idea of a good night involved flowers in the punch bowl. In the Americas, certain cultures turned to mushrooms. Long before the Aztecs, peoples of Mesoamerica used psychedelic mushrooms they later called teonanacatl, often translated as flesh of the gods. To them, this wasn't a party, it was a doorway to the divine. In the high Andes, the ancient Chavin culture built whole stone temples that seemed designed around the experience. Priests used powerful psychedelic snuffs, blown through tubes, while echoing tunnels and roaring water disoriented worshippers. It may be one of history's first deliberately engineered trips, and some ancient highs are now total mysteries. In ancient India, sacred texts praise a divine drink called Soma, said to bring power, visions, and bliss. The catch? We have completely lost track of what plant it actually was. One of history's most worshipped drugs, and nobody today knows the recipe. Here's the part that surprises people most. For almost all of history, getting high was not really about fun. It was sacred. These substances were tools to speak with gods, heal the sick, see the future, and survive grief. The first people to get high were mostly trying to pray, which made the shamans and priests who controlled these plants incredibly powerful. They were the gatekeepers between ordinary life and the spirit world, the original middlemen of the mind. If you wanted to reach the gods, you went through them. So why does this same story pop up on every inhabited continent, over and over, with cultures that never met? Because the wiring is in us. Our brains are built to chase reward, meaning, and a way out of pain. And nature is full of plants that flip those switches. Getting high may just be a very human side effect of having a complicated brain. And remember, we only know about the highs that left a trace, the plant residue, the buried bowl, the lucky scrap of writing. The true first high, the very first human who felt their mind lift off, that moment is gone forever, redacted by time. We will never know their name. But we know this much. Long before we wrote a single word, built a single wheel, or minted a single coin, humans had already discovered how to change their own minds, and they built rituals, religions, and entire temples around it. It is one of the oldest things we do. It happened. You just weren't told. If you like the true stories your history teacher skipped, subscribe. There's a new one tomorrow.